Hey there and welcome! Today, we're going to dive into something that's probably hiding on a lot of our computers, malware. Look, understanding what this stuff is and how it actually works is hands down your best defense in the digital world. So, let's get right into it. So, has this ever happened to you? You're sitting there just trying to get something done and you find yourself asking, why is my computer so slow? Maybe you're seeing weird pop-ups or things are just sluggish. It's super frustrating, and believe me, it's not always because your hardware is old. It could be something a lot sneakier. And a lot of the time, that sneaky culprit has a name, malware. It's short for malicious software, and that name really tells you everything you need to know. This is the big umbrella term for any software that was created just to cause trouble. Think of malware as the main villain in our story today. So, where do we even begin? Let's start with the most famous troublemakers out there, the ones that are absolute pros at spreading themselves. We're talking about viruses and worms. Now, they both want to replicate and spread, but they do it in really different ways. First up is the one we've all heard of, the computer virus. And hey, here's a fun little fact for you, especially if you have an exam coming up. Virus is actually an acronym. It stands for Vital Information Resources Under Siege. Just like a flu virus needs a person to infect, a computer virus needs a host program to survive. It attaches itself to a file, and when you run that file, you've just let the virus loose. And once a virus gets going, oh man, that's when the trouble really starts. It can eat up all your computer's memory, which can bring your whole system to a screeching halt. It can mess with your files, or even delete them completely. And yeah, it's very often the real reason behind that slow computer we were just talking about. All right, now let's talk about the virus's cousin, the computer worm. And if there's one word you need to remember for worms, it's standalone. See, unlike a virus, a worm doesn't need to piggyback on another program. It's its own independent piece of malicious software. Okay, pay close attention to this next part, because this is a super common question on exams. What's the real difference between a virus and a worm? Just remember this, a virus is a parasite. It needs a host file. A worm, on the other hand, is a traveler. It can move through a network all by itself, jumping from computer to computer without any help from you. Okay, so we've talked about malware that spreads on its own. But you know, some of the sneakiest types actually trick you into inviting them in. These are the masters of disguise, and they count on fooling you to get into your system. And the perfect example of this is the Trojan horse. Yep, it's named after that giant wooden horse from the Greek story for a reason. It shows up looking like something you want. A free game, a cool app, but hidden inside is a nasty surprise. You think you're getting a gift, so you willingly let it in, and then it unleashes chaos. Next on our list is spyware. And honestly, the name pretty much says it all, right? It spies on you. It can sit quietly in the background, recording every key you press, watching the websites you visit, and collecting all kinds of personal info. Then it sends all that data off to someone else. It's seriously creepy stuff. And then we have what might be one of the scariest types of all, ransomware. You can think of this one like a digital kidnapper. It gets into your system, locks up all your files with strong encryption so you can't access them, and then it demands money, a ransom, to give you the key. So we've covered a lot of malicious programs, right? But what about the attacks that target the person sitting at the keyboard? That's right, us. We can sometimes be the weakest link. This is where we need to talk about hacking and phishing. Hacking, in its simplest form, just means getting into a computer system when you're not supposed to be there. The person who does it is a hacker. But here's the thing, not all hackers are the bad guys you see in movies. Their reasons for hacking can be very different. It's kind of helpful to think of it like this. You've got your black hats. These are the villains. The ones out to steal your data or cause chaos for their own benefit. On the complete opposite side, you have white hats. These are the good guys. They're often called ethical hackers, and companies actually hire them to find security flaws before the bad guys can. And then, somewhere in the middle, you have gray hats. They might break the rules to get into a system, but their goal is to report the problem, not to exploit it. Now, one of the biggest tools that hackers, especially black hats, use is something called phishing. It's basically a bait-and-switch con game. You get an email or a text that looks like it's from a company you trust, like your bank. It tries to scare you into clicking a link and giving up your username and password. So you might be wondering, how do they make those fake emails look so incredibly real? Well, they use a technique called spoofing. This is all about faking an identity. They can make an email address look like it's coming from a legitimate source or build a whole fake website that's a perfect copy of the real one. A really good phishing attack almost always uses some clever spoofing. Whew, Okay, that was a lot of information, I know. So, to make sure all this stuff really sticks, especially for any of you studying for a test, how about a quick pop quiz? You ready? All right, here we go. Question 1. What type of malware is designed to replicate itself and spread to other computers? Take a look at the options and think back to what we said about the self-spreaders. Which one of these can copy itself and spread all on its own? I'll give you a second. And the correct answer is B, worm. That's right. Remember, the worm is the standalone traveler. The Trojan needs you to run it, ransomware locks your files, and spyware just watches you. The worm is the one that's famous for spreading across networks all by itself. And that really brings us to the most important point of this whole explainer. All this stuff, knowing a virus from a worm or spotting a phishing attempt, it's not just for acing a test. In our digital lives, knowledge really is power. It's your best weapon, your first and most important line of defense. So, I want to leave you with a question to chew on. Now that you can name the enemy and you understand their tactics, what's the very first thing you're going to do, starting right now, to step up your own security? Thanks